Okay, so we are here again. We've just completed the Personas webinar. We had loads of really great questions that came up during the session, but we didn't have time to get to all of them, and we promised you that we would do our best to get those answers out to you. So we thought rather than writing up a document for you to sift through, we would do another quick short video. So I've brought Emma back with me here to answer the questions that we didn't get through. Okay, Emma, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, brilliant. So the first one that we didn't get around to, during the session, you'd mentioned about possibly using psychometrics in your personas. I think we used Ocean as an example.
Yeah.
And we had a question here that said, would you run the actual psychometric tests in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, it depends is the answer. To run and administer psychometrics, some of them are paid for, and some of them you have to have like a licensed professional to run the psychometric. There are different levels. I won't go to the qualifications. If you're a psychologist, you'll know this. There are different levels of qualification that you get as a psychologist that enable you to administer and interpret different psychometrics. So a lot of organizations already have these sorts of capabilities in-house. So often people in the L&D team will have the necessary kind of licenses and qualifications. If you've got it in-house, brilliant. If not, you just have to go externally to a provider to do that for you. There are lots of different psychometrics out there, so just be really clear on the psychometric you're using and why you're using it. And it might be that your company already has a preference for a particular psychometric or uses a particular psychometric. So just do a bit of digging around and you'll find the answer. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And actually, it comes to the point that you made right at the very beginning of the webinar as well, is seeing what insight you've already got out there.
Yes.
We worked with an organization, and it turned out that somebody else outside of the team we were working with, so another team, had created insights, which is another type of test, and we ended up incorporating that into their episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, next question. How often would you review and update personas?
Yeah, again, there's no hard and fast rule here. I think the point is when you're working in employee experience and engagement, you should be continually curious about, your employees, about your customer, essentially. So you don't want to make it a massively onerous bureaucratic process that every, X amount of months or whatever it might be, we have to update them. But I just think if they start feeling like they're not really resonating, they're not really capturing or helping you to design experiences, it's probably time to revisit them. I don't think they change as much as you would imagine. So it's not like you need to kind of like do a wholesale review every year, but I think just revisit them every now and again, just say, do they still feel right? And have a look again at, your survey data. I mean, pretty much every organization runs at least an annual survey, if not more regularly survey. So have a look at the data that you've got, does it still kind of map to the personas? Have a look at kind of focus groups or workshops or exit data, any data you can get your hands on, just sense check they still feel right. But I would say that they don't change as much as you think they might do.
Thank you. Okay, now I think we answered this one during the actual session, but it came up quite a few times. So let's just cover it again now. So how many personas is too many personas?
Yeah, that's it comes up all the time because people often are a bit incredulous that in sort of 6 to 8 personas you can do a decent job, but you really can, as we've proven with BAE systems. Remind me how many they've got, Kate. I can't remember. I think it's between 6 and 8 anyway. Certainly no more than 8. If you start to get more than about 8 personas, it gets too onerous and you start feeling like, oh, it feels like a massive kind of undertaking to kind of use them when you're at any point in the X design process. So I think any more than that and you're just going to waste your time and effort because you're not going to use them, basically. So I think 6 to 8 is the number to aim for.
Yeah, I think just a point to add on that, it came back to a conversation we were having during the session about being comfortable with the fact that you're not necessarily going to capture every single personality and tick every single box for each individual person.
Absolutely.
And when it comes back again to how you use the personas, it's not like that old traditional segmentation where, you know, it's very neat. It's a thinking tool. So as long as you've got those core behaviors captured across your personas, and there might be overlap, then really you're ticking those boxes in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, next question. So do you create different personas for different projects in the same organization, or one set of personas and use them company-wide across multiple projects?
Yeah, so again, I think we might have talked about this in the session, but just to kind of recap, my recommendation really is to create a kind of a company global set of personas. But by global, I don't mean kind of geographically, I mean a set that covers the whole organization. You can then add more kind of flavor to them if you're using them for a specific project or a specific area of work. So for example, in the webinar, we showed some personas that had some internal comms preferences on. So it might be that your internal comms team take those personas and say, actually, we want to add a little bit more communication flavor in here. So we're going to add a little bit more detail around communication, whatever that might look like. Or it might be that your L&D team might want to add a little bit more flavor around, you know, the learning side of things. So I think, you know, you wouldn't want a different set for different projects at all, but you take your kind of core set, your Tom Hanks's underwear, and then you would add some flavor to that. Still Tom Hanks, no matter what outfit you put on him, the essence of Tom Hanks is still Tom Hanks, but you kind of, you know, use him in a different way depending on what you're looking at. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the original webinar and you've come to this video first, make sure that you watch that one. Otherwise, you're going to wonder what we're talking about, Tom Hanks in his underwear.
Absolutely. It's not as exciting as it sounds, believe you me. Sorry if I raised your expectations there.
Okay, the next one. So this is a specific question for this person's situation. So this person said, I work for a charity. Would you typically have the same personas for those paid colleagues and those who are volunteers, or would you have two different sets?
That's a really great question. And I think you can't answer that without doing the research. So your hypothesis could be, yeah, we definitely need two sets. And when you go out and you gather your insight and you look at what gaps you've got and you run your workshops, your interviews, whatever it might be, you might say, actually, you know what? We don't need two sets. We're covered. But it might be that you do. So you need, this is the whole point about having them evidence-based. You need to go out and, you know, find out from your people what their needs, what their motivations are, who they are, what their behaviors are all about, who they're all about, to be able to answer that question. Because I think, you know, your assumption probably would be, yeah, we need two sets. And it might be that you do, but it might be that you just need one persona that kind of talks about all of your volunteers. Or it might be that actually they've got way more in common than you'd ever realized.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you definitely need to do that bit to really understand it. But I mean, my hypothesis would probably be the other way around, which is you could probably encapsulate those through, you might have like one or two personas which are more aligned to your volunteers and more aligned. So it'd be really interesting. But yeah, you absolutely need to do that piece of work to answer that. Yeah. Excellent. The last question we didn't get around to answering them. So how many persona pages is too many? So not how many personas, but how many pages. So this person's example is when they created personas, they had an introductory page, they had goals, challenges, needs, pain points, and an empathy map for each one. But they found that they ended up getting pushback from some of those programs who just wanted a one-pager.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of personas is to use them. So there's a little bit of a fine balance here between giving enough information. I think 2 to 3 pages on a PowerPoint. So it's not, I mean, you know, if you were writing it on A4, it probably wouldn't be as much, but it's quite visual, quite a visual thing. Again, looking at the webinar, if you look at the webinar, we share some examples. So it should be quite visual because we're able, again, going to psychology, we're able to make sense of that really quickly. We have to read loads of words. It's like models and visuals. I mean, get a really quick sense of what that persona is all about and step into the shoes as a thinking tool. So I think you've got to be a bit smart with them. If they're like really difficult to read and like loads and loads of text and they're really onerous to read, you sort of give up, don't you? So I would say keep them short and sweet. I think from the description, it sounds like the personas that they had were spot on. The only kind of question I'd have really is, for me, an empathy map is more how you use a persona for a specific experience you're designing or a challenge, or use it in a quite specific context. I probably wouldn't include that. In fact, I definitely wouldn't include that. But I think other than that, all sounds spot on. But I think it's just about getting smart with like how you can visualize the information as much as possible, so people can straight away get a real sense very quickly of what that persona is all about.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. Well, that takes us to the end of the outstanding questions. Obviously, if you still have some questions burning away after watching this video, please do drop us a line. All of our details will be, if you're watching this on YouTube, underneath the YouTube video, or if you've received this as the follow-up mailer, then just reply to the mailer and we can do our best to get in touch with you and answer any outstanding questions. I think that's it. Anything else from you, Em?
No, that's good. Thank you for coming along, and really enjoyed the conversation. And yeah, feel free to follow up with more questions. We're always happy to answer them.
Thank you.